It was 1985 and cold, hard winds were blowing across the quaint old Australian wine industry. They were pulling vines out in Clare. Beautiful old Shiraz and Riesling vines that our grandfathers had planted were worthless. They bulldozed them, lit them up in great bonfires. You could see the glow all over the valley. Peter and Mark Barry decided that before it was all gone, they would make a wine, a great Australian Shiraz from Clare, a defining wine of their region. Their father Jim always taught the boys to do things differently. If everyone is going one way, don't follow. Create your own path, he'd say. The antithesis. Jim had planted a Shiraz vineyard in the shallow gravel sand near the little village of Armagh in 1968. The little patch of 8 acres were hand-watered from a drum in the back of a FX Holden ute in the drought of '69. Only water the ones without leaves, Jim would say. The vines with leaves will live. Don't waste water on them. And true to his word, the dead ones sprouted shoots from below the ground in a few weeks. They did live, and they were pruned and trellised and nurtured to life. So in 1985, the Barry boys picked these purple grapes from these gnarly old vines. From the beginning, it was a wine of the soil, a wine from a special vineyard. It still is. They crushed those berries and carefully pressed them. Then they bought 6 new American hogshead barrels. While everyone else was pulling out vines, the Barrys were buying barrels that were worth more than the grapes. Beautiful barrels they were. They smelt like sweet vanilla, all the way from the forests of America. You see, the opposite, the antithesis. When everyone else was making Cabernet Sauvignon blends, the Barrys were making a Shiraz, which would last for 30 years. The first wine was about 12% alcohol. It wasn't overripe or jammy. Bright crimson red, wonderful acid structure. So they tucked it away in those barrels. The only other wines made like this, aged like this in those days, were Grange Hermitage and Hill of Grace, long before all the other big Shiraz of the 1990s. Then they found a calligrapher and created a unique typeface. They wanted it to look Celtic, like their roots. They found this heavy textured art paper for the label, and they called it Armagh, a tribute to the homesick, teary Irish who settled in 1849, to the persistent, hard-working Barrys, and to a very special little vineyard. History is not luck. History is something you make every day, having a crack, like our forefathers, pioneers, swimming against the tide. It's the spirit of Armagh.
The 2018 Armagh is a very special vintage for our family because it marks 50 years since my grandfather planted the Armagh vineyard in 1968. 2018 was an amazing growing season, and the result in Armagh is one of the most balanced, harmonious and complex vintages we've made. We recently did a tasting of every vintage of Armagh back to the inaugural 1985, and the consensus was that the 2018 is the best vintage we've ever made.